Hello, welcome to Why Not Both. My name is Pam Schaefer, and I'm a musician and therapist in Los Angeles. Why Not Both is all about how our multiple passions inform our identity, and this season we are brought to you by Under the Radar magazine and produced by Laura Studeris. If you like what you hear, please make sure to like us and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform and come spend time with us on social media. We are at WNB the podcast, and that is both on Instagram and on Twitter. For this episode of Why Not Both, we got to chat with Matt and Nick from the band Local Natives. It was recorded in the before times when we could actually go outside. So we hung out by Echo Park Lake and talked about their new album and got harassed by ducks. I hope you enjoyed this interview. Welcome to Why Not Both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming to
Thank
Echo
you.
Park Lake. So I'm here with Matt and Nick from Local Natives, and we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first question that I usually ask is, what do you do? And is there a better question to ask you?
It was funny. I was with one of our bandmates last night. We were talking about being at like dinner parties and holiday parties, and how that's just like the go-to question of, what do you do?
Yeah.
And it always feels weird with what we do. I always kind of don't want to say what I do, because then they start like, oh, you're in a band. What are they called? What do you do? Like, I just prefer like, I just make music. I make art. So that's what I do.
You make music, you make art.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. I also make music and art, and and I guess my other passion would be I'm really into cycling. So
Nice.
That is kind of like when I'm not making music, I'm usually on a bicycle riding around Los Angeles or anywhere I can pretty much find a decent road to ride on.
And that's a challenge in LA. Being a cyclist in LA that's hardcore.
It can be a challenge for sure, yeah. It, there's a lot of amazing places to go to ride when you can get away from the cars, but when you're in the city, you can feel a bit like you're not welcomed there.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
worse places. I've ridden in worse places.
I was going to say, because there's a paucity of bike lanes here that some neighborhoods have put in more, but
Yeah.
like there's parts of like Santa Monica where you'll be biking and then all of a sudden it's like, surprise, no more bike lane.
Yeah, it's a lot of that. So,
Yeah. And I was curious for you, like, when you said, like, oh, I don't really want to say what I do because then it gets awkward. Like, is there a better question that people could ask you or that you ask
back
of
to your
people?
question. I don't know. I guess that's a societal question, like, what do you do at dinner parties other than define yourself by your job? But
That's grim.
that's deep. Yeah. Do you have a partner? How much do you make a year?
Uh-huh.
No, I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of like a normal icebreaker. You talk about the weather, talk about what you do, just to kind of get size somebody up. But it's fair. I understand why we all do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we're just all looking for some kind of connection to each other or something to relate to.
Yeah. Guess like the other thing is like, where are you from? And then you're like, oh, you're from San Diego. Oh, do you know Sammy? Like there's like a like
the only Sammy in San Diego.
SD Sammy.
Yeah. Where like when you say you're from LA, I feel like that'll come up like, oh, like East Side, you must know Sammy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
East Side Sammy.
Yeah.
Keep him away from SD Sammy. That's funny, because being from LA, people do ask me that frequently, where like they think that you just somehow either know everybody or like grew up with everyone who they've seen on television.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, surprisingly, only a few of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would love to know more about, because now we know that you're a musician who does art, and I'm curious, what is the art that you do outside of music?
It's a lot of collage-based stuff, a lot of fucking with typography and distorted text and just graphic design and somber, I don't know, just visual art. I do, Matt does as well. We do a lot of the band's artwork as well, so it kind of
cool.
lives and breathes for like I just made a lyric video animation thing for one of his songs that we just put out a few weeks ago. So like I don't know if I'm saying like some artists be like, I'm a fine artist, this is like my lane. I feel like I'm just, there's a few things I know I'm pretty good at and I like doing, but then I knew we needed a video and I kind of had an idea and just like
And you were like, I
kind
know
of
how to do this.
DIY. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I pulled something off, but I'm not a videographer by any means. It's just like, just made it.
It came out sick.
You're like, it came out rad.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was like with you, I remember because you've been like dabbling in the video stuff, but you know that was like you just kind of like dropped to this like finished lyric video, and all of us were like, "Holy shit!" So,
Thank you.
Well done. Yeah, because that sounds like one of the best ways to experiment is almost within then the context of your music to be like, well, I guess I'll try out this idea.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
I think I can speak for me. Maybe Matt, similar background. I think we both kind of have like a DIY ethos of like music, where it's just, to be honest, we've worked with a lot of outside collaborators, but generally we're very untrustworthy other people to give away what Local Natives is, or you know, growing up, other bands we were in or other projects are just like, this music is, I'm really proud of and real personal. Like, I don't just trust some stranger to make an album cover or make the show poster. Like, I think, at least for me, I think to you to an extent, like, that's just kind of where it stemmed from, where it's like, we had somebody quickly make a lyric video for the song we just talked about, and it was just like, they're completely missing the mark. I'm just going to make it. You know, I'll just do it. I don't trust somebody else to.
Well, especially
make
if you
it.
have a vision of what you want in regards to that, like kind of like a wraparound, not just this is the music, but these are the visuals, this is the aesthetic, this is what we want the whole field to be. And if you can execute it, like, why not?
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have like I think we're lucky enough that we have a lot of the resources within the band to like to do that kind of stuff, and you know, and like you're really good at like kind of diving into like pushing yourself into like another, like doing the video thing, and kind of like just you're like learning it as you go, I would assume.
Yeah.
But like I think because it's, you know, at the core of it, it's like this music that we're all really passionate about,
Right.
and we care so much about, we dedicated so much of our life to, that we're like, it makes you want to like spend that extra time to be like, all right, well, I'm gonna learn how to use Premiere, or like learn how to use Final Cut, or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
It's worth it to get it right.
Well, and also to trust your bandmates, to be like, I know you know how to pull this off. Like, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is cool.
So that's kind of how it stems for me, where I think the music and the art were always kind of intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like a punk sensibility. I never played any punk music, but I always liked how those bands in the 80s were like, they controlled the aesthetic.
Yes.
That was, the visuals were just as important as the music. And I don't know, growing up, it's kind of like that indie DIY thing where it's just like, they were hand in hand, and that's how I
mean, that makes
approached
sense
it.
to me. Do you exhibit your art outside of music stuff?
Yeah, I have. I mean, not a ton, but I've done a couple group shows and a couple galleries. Still
That's
have
awesome.
some pieces, and
Hey.
it's completely that. Like, that's what I say. Like, I have a style and things I like and enjoy, which Matt can tell is something that's completely my style that would never work for the band. Yeah, so I do that.
That's rad.
Yeah.
And I was curious because yours sounds kind of almost intertwined, whereas like your interest in cycling sounds like it's almost something completely outside of music.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it does have. There are like, I can find threads to it.
Uh-huh.
Basically, I've always been a fairly, I mean, I guess growing up I was a pretty active person, but I found over the years of just like, you know, we've been touring so much for the past like 10 plus years, and with a lot of touring comes a lot of like sitting or
Yes.
and kind of slowly destroying your body.
Kind
in
of
different
smushed
ways.
into like the luggage cart of a
Yeah,
bus.
You know, like, all these little ways to just like slowly mess up my neck and
Yes.
feel, like extremely out of shape. And cause yeah, I think it was. I'm almost 35 now, and before I turned 30, I had this kind of like moment of like, I want to feel better. I want to just like feel like
Right.
generally feel better,
Yeah.
like health wise, and just I don't know, maybe mentally too, and like that's
Well,
all
yeah,
connected.
all that stillness, and not stillness in like the Zen way, but just like sitting still for no good reason
Yeah.
while you're in transit way.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't sound like fun mental health wise.
Yeah. So I think I reached this point where I was like, I was about to turn 30. I wanted to feel better, and I kind of just like started exercising semi regularly, but it was like a slog. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go for a little run. And just like I hated it at first, but I feel like I kind of got past this point of like I started running regularly, and I started feeling just generally healthier, and like was looking forward to like having these little moments to like go out and go for a run or something like that. And
Right.
through running and just kind of being generally active, I had some friends that were really into cycling,
Oh, cool.
and they kind of like pulled me in. Actually, Taylor, who's also in the band, he was cycling a lot at the time with some other friends,
Uh huh.
and they kind of roped me into this whole.
So you got
world.
jumped into their bike gang?
Kind of. Yeah. And I immediately just fell in love with the whole thing. Just like, I remember they took me on my first like quote unquote proper ride in LA, and like you just kind of there's a river path you can get up into Griffith Park.
Oh,
but
yeah. That's
there-
beautiful.
there's like closed roads up in Griffith Park, and I
Yeah.
remember like rediscovering the city in a whole different way, but on two wheels, and also getting like a workout and
Yeah.
being in nature, and so I just really fell in love with it, and so it's become this thing that I've become pretty obsessed with over the years, and
That's awesome.
I kind of make sure I find time for it almost every day. And with touring a lot, it's been fun to like I bring a bike out on the road with me.
Oh,
I'm
that's
able
so
to, like, explore
cool.
these cities in a whole different way, and yeah, it's just kind of it's been fun to kind of have that because I'm a pretty introverted person, and I like to have my I mean Nick can relate to finding time alone on the road is
Yeah,
super
yeah.
important. And so I'll just like get on my bike and just go
And just
get
go.
lost somewhere for a few hours if I have the time.
Right.
That I think generally having that helps just make touring a better experience. Not that it's a bad experience, but it can be like exhausting. It can be exhausting at times.
Yes.
And so having something that's kind of like almost unrelated, but ultimately serves me in a really good way,
Yeah.
I think just helps. Yeah, it all connects back.
Well, it
to,
sounds like it would make you be then, in essence, like kind of a better musician and friend when you come back because you've had time to recharge, you've had time to decompress, you've had time to
100%,
experience that.
100%. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that would be the thread that I find through.
Well, yeah, because at that point, also I was thinking about how, like, when you go to a new city, it's really fun to explore by foot, but I'd imagine exploring by bicycle would be kind of like an intermediary almost between exploring by car and exploring by foot because you can get places a bit faster.
Totally. Yeah.
But you still get to explore, like, what's it like when you're actually on the street.
Yeah, absolutely. You get because like I feel like if I just got an Uber somewhere or something like that, everything kind of just like whizzes by, and you
Yeah.
just really get
Yeah.
a full sense of like where you are. But
Yeah.
on a bike, you get there faster, but you also are able to absorb things.
Exactly.
So,
What's one of your favorite cities that you got to bike around?
well, I'm lucky enough to got to ride a lot this year, and man, there was a few. I mean, LA I do love, and I do feel like LA can be pretty underrated for
biking.
cycling. But we have a lot of like you can just like, get up into the Angeles Crest, like pretty quickly. Just there's a lot like not far from my front door. So I'm from here, so I'm biased, but like LA is definitely one of my top. But I don't know. There was a few. I was just telling someone the other day. We were in Asheville earlier this year, and in North Carolina.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful city in the mountains and
Aww.
the Blue Ridge Mountains, and just kind of like had one of those days of escape, and that was definitely like a highlight. And even brought my bike overseas.
Oh my gosh, how did you do that?
I bought a case for it and
Wow.
forced myself to become a better bike mechanic. Basically, I had to like disassemble my bike.
I was
and
actually wondering that if you have to kind of take it apart because I was like, okay, I know how to get the front wheel off, but past that,
I mean, yeah, that was like kind of like a few years ago. That was the extent of my knowledge. Like,
Yeah.
take the wheels off and maybe get them back on. But now it's like I kind of know most of the ins and outs to get by, and so
That's
yeah, you
cool.
kind of like load it into a case and pack it as securely as I can, and get it on a flight and hope for the best.
Right.
Hope it doesn't get snapped.
Shows up on the other side.
Yeah,
Oh
hope it
my
shows up on the
god.
inside.
Yeah, I was just like, unless you have like a hard shell case, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Yeah, so
Do me a big anxiety.
yeah. But it was worth it. It was worth the mild anxiety I got on the trip there. Having the bike was worth it.
Having the bike. Do you bring any, like, in what medium do you do your art? And do you bring that with you when you're on the road, or?
I've tried unsuccessfully a couple times to bring stuff on the road.
Mm-hmm.
I think even when I joined the band, I was bringing like a million cameras, and then I would use one. And then it's like taking up valuable space. Not really. I do a lot of collage stuff, so I'll grab stuff and buy stuff on the road to bring home.
Got it.
And then a lot I'm just doing kind of on my computer or taking photos on my phone and then messing with them later. And
I was curious about that when you said collage, whether you were doing like physical collage work, and now that makes sense that you are doing like actual physical collage work as opposed to like digital collage work.
I do both. So it's
Cool.
just kind of some pieces are mixed, it's just whatever I get my hands on or whatever I think looks cool together or says something. Yeah.
Now I know who to give old magazines to.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll take them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no, go on.
I had a question for-
Uh-huh.
Didn't you bring when we were making the record? Didn't you bring the paints and like a little
Oh,
canvas and stuff too?
Yeah.
Oh.
But we weren't on tour. We went down to Mexico for like a month
Oh, sweet.
to write for our fourth album, Violet Street.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just this phase I was in for, I don't know, like a few months, half a year. It wasn't related, I guess, to the other visual. I never put anything out or sold anything or showed it, but it was just like I was just trying
Just wanted to do it.
I was trying to paint every day. Yeah, and I remember like Ryan did it years ago where he was doing like left-handed drawings,
Oh yeah.
where it's just like kind of
Yeah.
just making stuff with no purpose and just trying to do something that you normally don't do and see if, especially since we were writing the album, like if it sparks something, a different
Yes.
process that you're not used to. And
Yes.
yeah, I think going into making art or any music or art with no expectations is kind of freeing because
Yeah, I
for
was
more or
gonna
less
say.
the band we're known, so there's some expectation. It's like a statement on our previous album or the statement on the
Right, or
current
oh,
music
you're deviating from it, or oh, they're following a trend, or they're bucking a trend.
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
Yeah.
So anytime you can just free yourself to make stuff with zero expectations, nobody cares what I'm painting right now,
Well, it sounds like
But
the
it
freedom
helps
to
the
make art
process.
without an agenda to just make it.
Yeah.
And just be like, it is what it is. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That does sound like it would be very liberating, especially if you feel pressure to make something a certain way in your music or not make it a certain way. Sounds like if you're getting up in your head about it, you'd be like, oh, never mind.
Luckily, I don't feel that pressure in our band, but I guess just generally, people are expecting the next album, or they're getting clues, or they're relating a song from this album from the last album. Like
Right.
it's dissected in a healthy way,
Right.
but this other stuff I make doesn't have that scrutiny, so it's just
Well, and it's cool to make stuff that's just for you. So that way it's not about, are you, quote, good or bad at it? Are you successful or not? It's like you just make it for your own enjoyment to make it.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I sound the most zen saying that. It definitely goes in ways where, like, I will make art that I think looks terrible, or like,
Yeah.
or I'm surprised where like I make something. I remember it was just like this throwaway one that my wife and Ryan, one of our bandmates, they're like,
Uh-huh.
this is amazing. And I was like, no, like, what are you talking? Like, it was just like these other ones where I've worked so like excruciatingly like on the details and it's
Yeah,
just
and you're like,
this
this one? This is the one you
yeah,
made?
yeah.
How like that happens with like this is I spent like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because sometimes it's like, it's the one that you least expect, and I frankly think it's good to like practice doing things that you're actively bad at.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
to be like, what's it like to not be competent at this and to try it anyway and to just do it. Because then you might find A, either hidden competencies, or B, also challenge yourself that you don't always have to be rated as good, bad, or otherwise. To
Yeah.
just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've found that like I've been, even with music, like that's like that's what we do, but that I've been messing around with just like stuff at home. I've been kind of working on like a little home studio
Ooh.
and just making stuff to make it.
Yeah.
It'll like 90% of it will probably never see the light of day, but it's been this really fun kind of like not cathartic, but just like release of just like making stuff, and then I've had multiple times where I'll go back and like I made like this beat or something like that I thought was like rad, and then I'll go back 2 weeks later and I'm like, wow, this is horrible. But it's like, it's so funny. But it is just nice to have that like separate outlet that's not under some certain scrutiny, or like it's just you're making it for you. And it's,
Yeah. Well, and because when you're making stuff just for yourself, you can experiment because you're free from any sort of expectation.
Yeah.
So if your beat is terrible 2 weeks later, like, that's fine.
Delete.
Yeah, you're just like, cool, I made a really crappy beat.
Yeah.
Even in the band, I guess I'm proud of our approach a lot of times, but I think we think about process a lot. Just the way you're talking about like making music on your own, where like I can think of times making this album where like we try some weird recording techniques, or like I played piano, not hearing the rest of the track, or just like because it's about like process, like how would you make something out of like your normal way of making a song or a music, or like you're talking about like at home, just like even a few times I thought like we took away like certain drums on your kit, so you'd like, all right, like play the song, but you don't have your normal setup, you know, like
you have to think
forcing
innovatively
yourself,
because you have to do something different.
and just process, I think, is like important, or just
Like changing the process.
Yeah.
Or evolving the process.
you're just fucking with it sometimes, like, you know, like
And also focusing on the process instead of the end goal.
yeah,
Like, just focus on the doing of the thing instead of the thing itself, almost.
yeah.
Like,
Hopefully that will work itself out and it'll be something cool at the end, but
yeah.
you can kind of, if you mess with the process, then you're making something in a whole new way,
Right.
as opposed to like, this is the way I make a song, this is the way I make a collage or play the drums. Like, you kind of trick yourself into
Well, because
doing something
otherwise
you
it would
can't.
be like calcified, and why would you just want to make the same thing over and over again?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's boring.
Exactly.
I think I'm like, I think that was a big thing for like to talk about the band, like on this last record that we put out. That was a big thing for us to kind of just like, kind of not throw the process out the window, but almost in a way on certain things. We just kind of like, we were in it and we were just like having fun making these songs together in a room for the most part, and just like doing crazy shit and, you know, not knowing what the hell was going to be
What it was going to sound like.
road, like cutting up tape and pasting it to the wall and just like reassembling it, or just doing like stuff that you're like, this is, I have no idea what it's going to sound like, but
That's so
it
much
makes so much
fun.
But it a lot of it made like for a really fun and like a really what we thought was interesting end product, and like to kind of have that experience as a band was great. You know?
Yeah.
What had your previous experiences been like?
Because I wasn't there for all the albums, but every album is different. Where, yeah, sometimes we got, I guess for a while, we were really into like making demos like super perfect.
Oh my god, sorry. There was
Look at
like,
that bird.
there was like the most bold pigeon. Almost landed on Nick's head, is like totally punking us, strutting around, just being like, we know who's boss here. I'm coming for you.
Coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a menace. Other albums, menacing pigeons aside.
Some were very, very demoed out. Sunlit Youth, we were like all just making stuff on our computers and taking felt like we were producing our own stuff and
Oh,
different.
and then cobbling together from the things that each of you recorded individually, or?
Then it was just like jumping off points,
Oh,
but like
okay.
it was different from like jamming in a room.
Things would come like on that record. Things would come to the band whole as like maybe more of a finished, not a finished product, but like way further along in the process. Whereas
Oh, gotcha.
you know,
Gotcha.
I feel like a lot more of this record we brought things, or like Taylor or Ryan or Kelsey would bring a song that was barely even anything,
Uh-huh.
and it was a lot more like just jamming in the room and then seeing what happened. And we did that, you know, there was a bit of that in the first, like we did that, we've done that before. It's not like a new thing for us, but to kind of like do that, especially with Sean, our producer, on this.
Yeah.
And he brought this whole other kind of crazy element to the process. To have that was interesting.
How did you find Sean?
We worked with him a bit on the album before as well, but
Yeah.
in an engineering capacity. But we only worked with him. Oh damn! I only worked with him for 2 weeks, but we like really loved it and came up with like really rad stuff on Sunlit Youth, and
That's rad.
I think we all were just like we wanted to work with him again. He mixed a song on that album too. We just kind of, I don't remember how we got in touch with him then, but we worked with him before.
Because that can be a whole other thing of, like you were saying about trusting people with your art, is also trusting someone to come in and engineer and produce, because that can change everything.
Yeah.
So.
And I think with Sean, we realized, I remember it was like the first week of starting this new record with him. I think originally it was just kind of like, he's going to engineer the record. We'll work, you know. It was like unsure as to how much we were going to do with him.
Got it.
Very quickly, we were like, oh shit, this is like, we want him to do. Like,
Yes.
like be a part of the whole process, because it gelled so well. He made the process, I think, for the type of band that we are, and he works really fast, and he's able to jam in the room, and like he can like take that and kind of spin it in a really interesting way, and it felt like comfortable for us.
That's cool.
But it was also pushing us maybe outside of our comfort zone, but we liked what he was bringing to the table, if that makes sense.
That
Yeah.
does, and I feel like maybe, because if other musicians are listening, like, they'll get it, but like, for not musicians, I think that most people don't realize that the producer is almost like a bandmate / therapist / engineer.
Can be, yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of album making is kind of deep theoretical or philosophical
Yeah.
conversations, which informs a song or informs a direction, but it's just like
Yeah.
late nights or just like talking about life or yeah.
Yeah, and so you have to find someone that really gets you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's a whole other skill. Like, I know that, did you self-produce any of your records, or?
First one, did you guys?
Yeah, the first one, we pretty much, it was like we kind of produced it ourselves.
Mhm.
And like we co-produced with this guy, Raymond Richards, just here in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And
I like that we're all side-eyeing the birds now.
And then, you know, the second record we worked with Aaron Dessner from the National.
Oh, cool.
He produced, and then third record kind of felt like it was like a collab with
With Brian Joseph, who we knew from the Bon Iver camp.
Uh-huh.
But it was, yeah, he was there the whole time, but it was also that album where we were making a bunch of stuff on our own, so it was just like all these different combinations of us in different ways.
Yeah, it's always just been this weird combination of like producer, but we're also producing.
Yeah.
We just had someone in the traditional sense as a
Yeah.
producer or something like that. I don't even know the traditional sense.
I don't know if there's a traditional sense anymore. I feel like there used to be some sort of like band plays music, engineer records, producer masterminds, like sort of sits there, and I'm not, you know,
Yeah.
kind of is like, oh, I want you to do a little more of this, I want a little more of that, I want to cut this together, I want to do that. And now it's kind of like everyone's like, like,
The lines are blurred, and I feel like even us as musicians, like, we know more about engineering than I assume artists did. Most artists did, like, 25 years
I feel
ago.
like
Like
in
you
a
would
way,
just go to the
yeah.
studio and you wouldn't be like, no, this is the type of compressor I like on my,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah. I
but
feel like
we
artists
all,
are more empowered and knowledgeable about that now than previous.
yeah. And it's probably because people are making a lot of stuff by themselves at home. So like you're like, oh, I need to learn how to mix this song if I'm going to put it out, you know?
I feel like also, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but learning how to do more on my own has helped me communicate with people that I collaborate with better. If I can say, like, this is what I might do, like, what might you do? So that way I can get their feedback, but then it's like speaking the same language. Whereas if I'm like, and then I sit and play an omnichord, they're like, great, okay. Like,
Right.
what comes next?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that definitely helps the communication for sure. Kind of like knowing, having a sense of like what you're looking for,
Yeah.
rather than just being like using like terms that only make sense in your brain.
Yes. You're like, and then I press buttons and things happen. How do you feel like we were talking about kind of like role delineation when you're in the studio? How does it feel like when you're outside of the studio to define yourself like as a musician or as an artist or as a cyclist? Like, do you feel like we are nearing a place in society where we are kind of blurring those lines more? Or do you think people still want to clearly delineate like, I am this, like my essence is this?
I think it just depends on the person, right? I mean, I guess for us, I mean, I'm enjoying having kind of like multiple things that
Yeah.
multiple passions, multiple things that I care about, and because I know, because if becoming, I don't know, I have this like thing, I have this, there's so much, this life is, not to get like too like deep, but this life is so short.
You can
There's
get
so
deep. You're
there's so
good.
many things, like I always have this thought of like there's so many things that I want to do
Yes.
in my lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to regret anything. And
Right.
and I think having outside things outside of like maybe just the band or your day to day is important. Just having like your own identity, I think helps, and I think it helps us as a band. You know, like Nick having you having art, or putting out your own music, and me having cycling, or like Kelsey put out a solo record a few years.
Oh, sweet.
Put out a solo record, and I think everyone kind of having their own like lives and identities,
Right.
I think is ultimately really healthy for a band's dynamic, especially because it's five of us. We're all so intertwined. We've been
Yeah.
intertwined for so long, and I can't, if that's your whole life all the time, 150%, I feel like that's not sustainable.
And it seems like you'd have an identity crisis. Like when you're not on tour, you'd be like, "Am I a shrubbery? Like, who am I? What happened?" Like-
Yeah, I remember when we first really started touring years and years ago. Like, not to sound like but just I remember like in like 2011, coming back from a tour, and we had been on tour for a long time, and it was that thing of like this, like my life had become fully the band, which is
Yeah.
amazing and what I always wanted. But then to come home and all of a sudden stop and be like, "What now? What am I supposed to do?"
Yeah, you're
And
like,
kind of
hold
have,
up.
like, that anxiety, like panic, freak out kind of thing.
Oh, or you're like, how do I make breakfast? What do I do?
But I don't know. I think just kind of learning that it's all, you can have multiple passions and multiple projects and multiple things, and that's okay, and that's like healthy for everyone involved.
Yeah, and in fact, it sounds like it enhances what you're working on instead of detract from it.
Yeah, I would say so, right?
Yeah. What do you think?
At least for me, I think they all feed into each other. I guess I see both in the question you asked.
Yeah.
Like back to where we started, like just at dinner parties, like what do you do? Like it's just such an easy way to jump off to like talk a little bit about yourself, but
Right.
like I just feel so kind of douchey saying like I'm an artist, I'm a musician, but that is what I do. But
Why do you
it's
think
just
it's douchey?
I think there's a lot of pretentiousness to those terms, maybe especially in LA where we are, in New York where I live. Like it's just
Right.
like this. It's like saying like like I'm a actor writer, you know. It's just like you could be a great actor writer, but there's that term brings a lot
It
of
brings kind of a weird stigma to it.
yeah, but it's just like starting to talk about what you do as opposed to like it's a jumping off point to get deeper as
Right.
opposed to like I really don't want to identify as like an artist or a musician. I just want to make stuff, and I feel like it's like this need for us as humans in society, like, or what kind of music do you make? What kind of art do you make? Or like what kind of specific job title do you have? Or it's just like I really don't think about that a lot. I'm just like making stuff. I feel like especially with the band. Oh my goodness.
Take a quick break.
Quick pause for the bells of Echo Park. It'll chime twice. I believe it's two.
It's two?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe so. It may or may not be two. I might be lying.
It's gotta be. Yeah.
Let's see.
One. Two. It is two.
There you go.
Hey,
It's 2 p.m. Western time.
Well, and I was wondering when you said that your interest was in creating stuff, is it more or less pretentious to just be like, I create stuff for a living, or I enjoy creating projects or working on creative projects? Does that sound more douchey or less douchey?
I think just maybe I'm just also like an introvert like Matt, like talking about myself at great lengths just sounds douchey at all. Like I don't mind like
Welcome to my podcast.
Yeah. And do a great job of promoting this.
Let's all dunk on ourselves.
I'm like a douchebag.
Like I really enjoy talking about music and art, but like in the terms of myself, you're like, this is
Yeah.
the art I make. I make indie rock. Or it's just like I guess that's a term that
You're like, I don't even want to hear myself right now.
yeah.
Yeah, I totally get that. Totally, like, it's weird. Maybe it is just a big part of it is just kind of a personality thing. You know, Nick, I think we have pretty similar personalities, and like we're kind of quiet, introverted, and yeah, I don't know why. It's just I don't get like a. I mean, not that I'm. Not that I get a big kick. I don't get a big kick talking about myself. But I didn't want you to think that I was having a bad time.
On the podcast.
This is
I am
literally.
having a good time.
Yeah.
So, like, spoiler, I too am introverted, but I get to then ask the question. So I'm like, this is awesome.
So
I don't have to.
you can relate.
I
to
can
that.
relate. I'm just like, I'm having like sympathy pangs of, oh, I feel you. And you're not offending me in the least. 'Cause I'd be in the same boat as you, just being like, she wants me to talk about what?
Yeah.
So we're three introverts in a park.
Uh-huh.
Just
Trying to avoid the birds. So,
guessing the time.
Yeah.
That's too funny. When you said something that sparked it in my brain when you were like, oh, you have to talk about what you do. I was like, it sounds like also, I talked to other people about this, and international artists said different things than American artists, but we tend to focus on saying what we do is something that we do that's monetized.
Yeah.
And I was curious what your views were on that, of like why we speak up about the things that we do that make us money, whereas we were talking about how important the process is. And, you know, left-handed drawings, unless you're left-handed, seem like they might not bring you money.
Uh-huh.
So I was like,
right.
why do we focus on the stuff that brings us money?
I mean, there's probably some late stage capitalism, American politics we can get into with that, but
Yeah.
I do just generally, I can see like the Twitter bio of someone who doesn't make music, or it's just, you know, like husband, dad, writer, like, but
Yeah, like social roles.
yeah, like you feel, I guess back to your question before, like, how do you identify yourself? And you're like, this is how this person would write their bio on Twitter, because that's like, you know,
Right.
yeah, I don't, I'm interested what do like international artists say about that.
Well, it was interesting talking to people not from the U.S. about it, because they were saying that some of them didn't expect to actually make money from music. Like that they explicitly did not expect that music would be a source of income, but that it was equally important to them as whatever they did that did make income.
Yeah.
But that it was also presupposed that they were like, there's no shame in having a job outside of music, because then how would you make the music that you really like if it's predicated on making money?
Yeah.
It was more integrated in a way, whereas here it's seen as like, if you aren't making your living as an artist, like either you're doing art wrong or you're failing or you have to define yourself as something else. Whereas
Yeah,
there they
yeah.
were like, yeah, you're a musician, you make music.
Yeah.
Like,
What's funny is, I guess these two passions that we're talking about, music and design and art for me, like, I feel like they were flipped for a long time where, like, I did graphic design to pay the bills, like, and I did a lot of regrettable design projects of, yeah, just like stuff that I did to pay rent.
yeah.
And then at a certain point, I was able to live off of music, which always felt like a pipe dream. I was just like, I'm always just going to make music because I want to. No one was going into it to make money in the early 2000s. But at a certain point, those like flipped where it was like, oh, this is crazy. The band's doing well enough where I can like make a living off of it. And then I turned back
Yeah.
to design where it was like, oh, I'm just going to make stuff I really like. I don't have to make a wedding invite and corporate website that is so bad, but like I just, I need to
Right.
pay rent.
Right.
So like I would do that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's so funny because most people, it's like the other way around, where you're like, oh, I liberated myself in the visual arts sphere using music.
Yeah, it flipped the other way.
How about you? Like, what jobs did you work outside of music?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I actually had I guess a pretty similar story to Nick's, where after, like, I went to college for a couple years, took a break to basically pursue music, but it was always that thing of like, I have to put in X amount of hours to really like try and give it a shot.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I really have to like give it a go, and being full time in school right now is just not.
Yeah, then you don't have enough hours to actually work on your music.
Yeah, so it was like, all right, I'm gonna take a break, focus on music, but music is like, I wasn't expecting to make any. I was, similar thing where like I wasn't making any money off of music at that point, but I wanted to do it somehow.
Right.
So I went to school for design. I was also a graphic designer.
Oh, no way.
So I was also doing I was working full time as a graphic designer for a few years, and then when I started playing with the band in like 2006,
Okay.
and it was like when we started kind of shifting more towards like we were trying to go on little tours here and there.
Right. Right.
Touring across the country and playing to like 5 people in
That is the way.
Wisconsin. It was, like,
Yeah.
doing that hustle, just like getting on the road. We were doing that, but none of us were making any money doing it.
Right.
So I shifted from full time and started doing just freelance design work.
Yeah.
And again, similarly, just like nothing. If I were to make a design portfolio today, that would be in it.
So there's a lot of like sad passive aggressive corporate websites that y'all made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably.
Definitely out there.
Some print ads or something like that, or like editorial work.
Yeah.
Just like that's gonna just stay in a hard drive somewhere.
We're gonna
Never
lock
use-
this in the vault.
Yeah.
But I guess as we're saying the same thing, good encouragement to anybody listening that's creative. Like, I feel like there's I'll say a stigma. Just you put artists on pedestals. I'm not saying people put us on pedestals, but it's just like you just assume they never had to do the same shitty stuff that we all have to
Right.
do. Or it's like,
Yeah.
like I'm really proud of the art and design I make right now, but just as an encouragement to anyone else listening, like I've made some terrible stuff where like I'm just arguing with this bride to be about like this is like I promise you this wedding invitation is gonna look terrible if you do this, but I do it because they're paying me to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just like
There's literally not enough real estate in this piece of paper to put the amount of text that you want to put in it.
I remember I did a long time ago in LA. There's a bunch of movie industry design stuff.
Yeah.
And I worked on a couple movie posters or assets, not like the actual poster. And like it was nothing, no real movies anyone wants to see, just these shitty, like kind of action, whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember like my first draft, it was for this agency. And I was trying to be as cool, but obviously like a ton of Photoshop layers as possible, and like
Uh-huh.
turned it in, and it was just like after one draft, like I
Uh-huh.
gave up on all my pride and just did like a million Photoshop layers just because like I knew there was no point in like trying to make it tasteful at all. Like it was just like you don't even argue anymore. You're
You
just
went like
like,
deep bad.
yeah, oh yeah, like every instinct you had to turn off. But normally you fight for like, no, this will look a little bit better, like I promise you. But
Oh
just
no.
All right.
lost my will to live.
You want that? I'll give you that.
I'll
Yeah.
give you really bad. That's hilarious that you're like, I'll just add another masking layer. You can't stop me.
Yeah. It was a big Photoshop file.
It's like 2 gigs.
Yeah.
Nothing's flattened. Just be like, here you go. Deal with
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Do you do design work for any other bands, or is it mainly? Ooh.
Yeah, I do album artwork, I do book covers, I will art direct uh some smaller artist campaigns and stuff.
Sweet.
Yeah, so I guess that's all in the realm of just like I'm making stuff,
Making stuff.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, that falls under your. I've clearly given you a new job description.
Yeah, yeah.
You're a person who makes stuff.
Making stuff. Yeah.
That's got to be your new Instagram bio.
Yeah.
Yep.
19.
Yeah.
Since 19.
Yeah. Yeah, especially because we have such a music background, like if I can help smaller artists or yeah, it's not like I'm giving back. I don't feel like I'm charitable, but just like
Yeah.
I know a little bit about marketing and how you should like run an album campaign. So I'm just, and I
Yeah.
really enjoy making all the visual art. So
I think that that's really valuable because I think that the music industry, this is so cliche, but like the music industry has changed so much and still is changing. And frankly, like no one knows what's going on. Really?
yeah,
I was going to say, it looks like this now. And then we're like, we have no idea. We're all flying by the seat of our pants.
yeah,
So having someone that's like, this is how I flew by the seat of my pants. Like, can I assist you?
yeah, yeah.
That's really
I
cool.
have a little experience to draw from, and
Yeah,
help
got some
them out.
pants.
Yeah,
I don't know. Do you ever see like cycling as, because it's interesting that you define yourself as like, yeah, I'm a cyclist. Why would that not come up first, do you think? Or would it come up first sometimes in conversations?
I get that is interesting because that is that has just become this kind of thing I do on the side, and the band has been such a big music has been my whole life since I was a kid.
Yeah.
It was always the thing that I wanted to do. It made the most sense. Yeah, and so I guess that's just like the obvious thing to first, like if I'm introducing myself to somebody. Not that I'm like Matt, musician.
Yeah, you're not going to just Twitter bio at people.
No, yeah. But yeah, I do. I mean, it has become more of like, if I'm having that introductory conversation with people, it has become a pretty ingrained part of my life.
That's
I
cool.
have this whole other kind of community of people, and like now, kind of because of traveling and because of this company, I've been kind of doing some work for on the side with cycling.
Oh, what are you doing with them?
Well, I teamed up with this company called MAP.
Uh-huh.
They're based in Australia.
Oh, wow.
And through some mutual friends in the cycling world, they were kind of like looking to expand their ambassadors in the U.S. And they put me in touch, and I have been a fan of their brand for a while.
That's so cool.
So yeah, I started just kind of like doing some stuff for them, and that in itself has opened up this whole new, because they're a worldwide company, so when we're on the road, if I'm in similar cities that they have other ambassadors or people that work for them, I'll meet up and like try to organize rides, or like, just it's created this whole, it's made the world a lot smaller.
Wow. That's so
been
cool.
thing. So yeah, as it's become more of an ingrained part of my life, I do find myself in those introductory conversations with people talking like, yeah, I'm a musician, but I also do this. I'm a cyclist, and because I'm really passionate about it. And I've found so many other people along the way
that are also super into it. Yeah, because I'd imagine if you're doing one of like the cycling meetups, that way like people probably would introduce themselves by like their cycling interest, because that is your common interest, and then maybe later you'd find out more about them.
Right. It's funny. Like when I do a lot of those, I do a lot of group rides around LA and stuff like that, and you're always meeting new people.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's shops or different brands that kind of just do. All right, Saturday morning we're going to meet at this coffee shop at 8:30 a.m. We're going to ride here.
Yeah.
And they'll just put out like a mass post, and then a lot of times I've gotten to know a lot of people around the city, but a lot of times it's just people you're meeting for the first time.
Yeah.
You're all just like riding up into the mountains together, and if you're riding next to one person you haven't met, you're having that conversation.
Yeah.
You're having that like introductory conversation, but like on a bike together, and so your common ground is cycling.
Right.
And then so that's always funny where it gets flipped, where like our common ground is cycling, and then later like people will find out that like, oh, I'm a musician, and
right.
I'll have to have that conversation.
So what do you do?
What do you do
for financial compensation?
What is the trade-off? Do we
We're
get
not getting paid to ride up this mountain right now? So what do you actually do?
Also, kudos to you for being coordinated enough to bike and talk. I find that when I'm biking and I try to talk to someone, I inherently lean like towards them.
Yeah.
And so like when I'm biking with one of my friends, we always like stagger, because otherwise he's like, you're doing the leaning thing.
You're gonna crash it.
Our bikes are it's gonna be a 2 become 1 situation.
There's probably some, I'm just thinking this right now, some common thread between drumming and biking, because Matt's an incredible drummer and plays things that most humans can't, like really complicated beats.
Uh-huh.
But you're saying like, oh, if I was talking to someone on my left, I'd lean left. But I would just, when you were saying, I was like, oh, for sure Matt wouldn't do that, because he's like you play these crazy beats where like I feel like there's like I can see a line between those two things.
I guess there's like a coordination or something like that that's like necessary.
Yeah.
I feel maybe like a little cheesy saying this, but there's like a rhythm.
There is a rhythm to cycling.
There's obviously a rhythm with drumming.
Who knew?
It's the cheese factor. No, but there's like a natural rhythm that you have to like get into.
Exactly.
Maybe there's some kind of connection there.
Well, especially if you're cycling in the hills too, like that's way more challenging than just cycling on kind of flat pavement.
Yeah, because if you're kind of like stop and go, or like your cadence is weird, or
yeah,
like then you maybe start thinking about it too much. But if you get into like a flow,
yes,
the rhythm, you get into that. I mean, for me, I have moments cycling that kind of remind me of moments when, I don't know, there's people that talk about the flow or whatever.
Yeah.
Like when as a band we're like making something, or Nick and I are jamming on something that like just feels really, it's like you have that spark. That
yes,
really
you feel like you're like, I'm in my lane.
Yeah, you're in your lane and you kind of get lost in it.
Yeah.
That's a really special thing that can happen, and I've had those moments when I'm cycling where like, whether it's by myself or with other people, you get into like a zone, and like I've had moments up in like near Mount Wilson, up in the
it's beautiful up there,
up in the mountains, and you're kind of alone, and it's quiet.
Yeah.
And this rhythm, and it's almost like a meditative thing for me.
Very much so.
Which is, yeah, I feel like I've been searching for more things like that in my life.
Yeah.
As an anxious person, and having that in another thing outside of music is really important.
I think it is really important to have a hobby like that, and that is meditative. Like with running, you get into a rhythm. With biking, you get into a rhythm. I'd imagine when you're in the flow state making collages, you're kind of you're in that mode.
Yeah.
You're outside of your usual experience, and you're just like, yep, we good. I can just keep going.
I always find the thing that draws me back is when I forget to eat.
Yeah.
Like when I'm super into something, I can think of like a lot of times like my wife will come home from work like 5 or something, and it's just like she'll like that will break me out of like this trance. I was like, oh, she's like, you haven't eaten like all day, like what do you? And I was just like, oh, I forgot, like I was just doing this thing.
Yeah, you're like I was just in it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm super hungry.
That's an awesome sign that you're doing.
Yes.
That you truly love.
Yeah.
That's always like people think that it's really glamorous to date musicians, and I'm like, no, I'm a feral creature in a hoodie that hasn't eaten all day. Like, you see me hissing by my gear, just be like, just be like, oh, just throw snacks in it.
Yeah.
Accurate.
Yes. Yes. What does she want? More synthesizers. Yes, this is very normal conversation. I guess, like, kind of to wrap it up, like, what would the two of you recommend for people getting into really any of the things we talked about it? Like, getting into music, getting into cycling, getting into graphic design. Like, what would you all recommend for people who are like, how do I do all that?
I guess because we came up with a new Twitter bio, just making stuff like that. That would be my encouragement. Like a lot of the stuff I've made have just been like touch and go over the years, and because I had to make a corporate website a decade ago, I got really good at Photoshop one summer. You know, like just force yourself to make stuff, and you'll kind of learn along the way,
Right.
and you'll find what you're good at. You'll find your tendencies. Also, be encouraged. Like it doesn't even have to be stuff you like all the time. I feel like I
Yeah.
kind of forced myself to do that lately with music, just making stuff on my own again. Just make stuff. Like it doesn't. Everything doesn't have to be like this masterpiece
The
or like
ultimate.
you're releasing it or like it's good to just get in that flow and
Sounds like focusing on the process too. Just try something new, whether you're good at it or not. Just
Yeah.
like try something. Like I loved what you two were saying about like recording in different ways of like cutting up tape, of recording something without it in your in-ears, just playing the piano,
yeah.
seeing what comes out. And I'm like, oh, note to self, I'm gonna try doing that.
It was I'm not gonna take credit for that. It was Sean, our producer on that
Yeah.
album, and it's the Miles Davis technique. Like he would record everybody without being able to hear the other parts, and you would just either hear the metronome or you'd be like, all right, here comes the
Oh.
chorus and one measure, but you have nothing to play off of.
Wow.
So obviously it's gonna sound
Yeah.
really bizarre or awesome.
I was gonna say it's gonna sound, because especially if you do have the click, like you're all gonna play to the click, but like you don't know what it sounds like yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, sorry about the rogue birds.
So,
Like, they are.
I mean, but I just to bounce off of Nick, I would say just I guess I would say the same, a very similar thing of like just finding the time for the thing that you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
like making the time happen. Like,
And it sounds like,
I know
yeah.
sometimes it's easier said than done, and but like if it's something that you're genuinely interested in and think that could be a good fit for you, like making the time to do it and to just
Yes.
stumble through it and to
Yes.
suck at it for a while and like probably make a bunch of shitty stuff or like go on a bunch of rides that feel like shit.
Yeah.
Not to be like crass, but that feel really hard or
Yes.
like, just kind of I think pushing yourself to make time for it, and then you kind of I think eventually you'll notice that you get past a point. You'll get to a point where you get into a rhythm and you get into you recognize like, oh, I'm getting better at this, or
Right.
this is starting
Right.
to make more sense to me, or I'm making stuff that actually like I really like now,
Yeah.
or I'm like noticing my bike handling skills
Are all of a
even
sudden
strong-
somehow better.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like it's like anything. It's maybe simple to say, but just putting in the time.
Well, it sounds like prioritizing it, like that there's no shame in having another job or going to school or whatever it is you need to do, but like putting the time in and making sure that that's your priority.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because that's what I heard from you where you were like talking about, you're like, yeah, I knew that I wanted to try this. And I'm like, that's the perfect time. Like,
Yeah.
If it's there and it's like lingering in the back of your mind and it just keeps lingering,
yeah.
you have to listen to that.
Yeah, because you don't want to live with regret. You don't want to get down the line and be like, oh, I really could have tried doing that.
Yeah, totally.
Because that would suck.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
In conclusion, do stuff so you don't look back and go, ugh.
Exactly.
Pithy wisdom. You heard it here first. Do you two have any final thoughts on juggling all the things?
Yeah, I don't know. For me, they always kind of like inform each other. So
Yeah.
like the juggling is, if I'm making bad music for a week, then it's like, all right, I'm just not gonna make music for a week, and I'm gonna work on a collage, and
Right.
then when I hit a wall, I'm gonna jump back. Or even the studio with the band, I feel like I'd do that, where it's just like start making artwork for us or making random stuff. It's just, for me, they always kind of feed off each other. So it's just,
Right.
at least when I'm discouraged, I can just switch a medium, and maybe that would
Yes.
inform or spark something. But
Yes.
yeah,
And for me, I think there's a similar thing of like if we're talking specifically about like cycling or exercise. It's like I noticed if there's weeks that go by where like maybe one outweighs the other,
Mm-hmm.
then like I have to like rebalance a little bit, or at least
Got it.
most of the time it's the band. The music will overtake everything else. But
Yes, and then you're like, hang on a second, I haven't moved around.
Right, and then, but it's like I was just saying, like finding the time, even if it means like, all right, I got to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning to like get in an hour or something like that.
Right. Right.
But I never regret making that extra time for like getting on a bike or something like that.
Right.
Because I notice if I become unbalanced, then maybe the touring will suffer, or like I'm
Right.
not playing as well. I'm just tired, or
Yeah.
maybe I'm in a weird headspace or something like that. So
Exactly.
just finding a good balance is important.
I like that. And I like that neither of you put pressure on yourself that you like have to force your way through either playing music or doing design work or doing biking right then. It's like you kind of go with the flow of it and are like, okay, if this path isn't open, I'm going to take this other path and I know I'll get back to the other path eventually.
yeah.
Yeah. You're not being hard on yourselves about that.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe it's the older age zenness, and but also lucky to have success with the band, where we know we have something to fall back, not fall back on, but it's just like there's like we have some success. So I realize there's a
Yes.
sense of privilege even saying that, where like I can work on art for a week without
Right.
having to really kind of worry about
Yeah. You're
making
not
extra
like, oh my
cash
God,
'cause
I'm
I'm not on
going
tour
to
or
starve to
something.
death.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like it's good to acknowledge that privilege. Like and be like, yeah, this is my life right now.
Yeah.
And I love that you also are using that to then like help other artists too. Like,
Thank you.
yeah.
I mean, I enjoy doing it. I selfishly enjoy it, so it's
You're like not
purely
completely altruistic.
yeah.
But no, I think privilege is one of those things that people think it's like a bad word to be like, oh, I have a privilege. But it's like if you acknowledge your privilege and then utilize that privilege to help others or to change the system, I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Like, good on ya.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Well, cool. Thank you so much for joining me on Why Not Both?
Yeah, thanks for having us. This was fun.
This is really fun. Thank you
Three
for having us.
introverts in a park dodging birds.
Yes. That's the name. That's going to be the name of the conversation.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of Why Not Both. If you liked what you heard, please make sure to like us and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. You can also come hang out with us on social media. We are at WNB the podcast, both on Instagram and Twitter. This season, we are brought to you by Under the Radar. Under the Radar is a nationally distributed print, music, and entertainment magazine and website. You can find them at www.undertheradarmag.com and feel free to support them on Patreon. Extra special thanks to our producer, Laura Studeris, who has been absolutely amazing. Thank you again, and I look forward to next week's episode.